Fantastic. Good afternoon, everyone, and perhaps good day wherever you are joining from across the PwC network. My name is Kaustabh Basu. Just a brief introduction about myself. So I've spent about 21 years, and Andy, who's going to be our guest today, I just realized that we've kind of joined the firm roughly at the same time. I've been with PwC in various roles, currently with the social sector team and management consulting. And over the course of time in PwC, I've had the privilege of working on various internal and external client engagements around diversity and inclusion. Over this period, I've endeavored to really be a strong and active advocate of strengthening diversity and inclusion within organizations. So really excited to be your host today. We are keeping this dialogue alive around LGBTQ plus inclusion. This is in fact our fourth session in the Let's Talk series. This started in about February this year, conversing with out role models and leaders across the PwC network, and of course from within Indian industry. Now, the objective of these sessions is really twofold. First is, in a sense, to increase our understanding on the LGBTQ plus quotient, and of course be active allies. And the second is to give confidence and encourage LGBTQ plus employees to really be themselves, right? So far we've heard some amazing and inspirational stories from Samyukta Vijayan, from Parmesh, Sahani, from Liesbeth, Botha. However, today we have a very global and versatile global leader with us who wears many hats, who describes himself as someone who's curious, who's here to learn, experience life, and of course the uniqueness of human beings. So please join me in welcoming Andy Woodfield, PwC Global Client Partner for FCDO. So for those of you who aren't aware of what FCDO is, it's the Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office of the UK. So Andy is a PwC UK partner and is an out role model. Okay. He started his career with PwC as a cybersecurity consultant in 1998, and I did let slip your name a little early in the introduction, Andy, but it seems we joined the firm roughly at the same time. He became a partner in July 2006. He spent a majority of his time in PwC with the government and public sector group. Andy started the GLE at PwC UK, which is a LGBTQ plus ally group. And recently his new book, This Is Your Moment, which talks about the uniqueness of each of us, how we can find, follow, and leverage our unique path in life and business and at work. So we'll get to know a little bit more about the book as we converse with Andy. And also just to let you know, the book is available in all good bookstores and on Amazon India, from where I have procured my copy yesterday, Andy. You'll be pleased to hear, and I've just started reading it. So I'd encourage all of you to get your copy and get going with it. But before I sort of come to you and before we get started with our conversation, I did want to sort of provide you with a PwC India context. So our journey with LGBTQ plus is really at a sort of early stages, nascent stage. We've been taking small steps by creating awareness and education on the subject. We have very strong leadership commitment. I think the focus is really around communication, creating and strengthening policy on non-discrimination, and of course, expanding our policies for LGBTQ plus accommodation. So I think one of the big efforts this year has been the creation of the SHINE LGBTQ plus ally group. Now this is a group of sort of highly energetic individuals. We have about 80 plus members at the moment. And this group is really helping to support us in pushing the agenda of the LGBTQ plus inclusion. So I thought that sort of So broad context would be useful, as we go into this conversation. Of course, as an organization, we still have a long way to go. I mean, these are in early steps. And of course, in that context, I think we have a lot to gain from this session. Before I sort of get to you, I think a quick request to the audience. I think keep sending in your question. I think you have a link that's been provided to you in your calendar invite. And I think what we'll try and do is to try and put as many of those questions that we can to Andy. And with this, Andy, welcome you to this conversation. And I'm very keen, all of us, to hear about your journey within PwC and outside PwC. And so it's over to you.
Thank you so much, and it's a real pleasure to be with you. And also, I cannot underestimate how it feels to be asked to do this. It's very affirming to have PwC want to hear the stories of different people. So thank you for making that happen. So I'm not known for keeping my mouth shut, which is partly why I think I'm probably a global troublemaker rather than a global client partner, which many partners that work with me will probably agree. Maybe I'll talk a bit about my journey, and then I'm going to try not to talk too much, and I always think it's more interesting hearing questions and reacting to people's questions. But yeah, so I grew up in the countryside in the south of England. I was very much the only gay person in the village, I think. Back then, I didn't really understand why I felt different. I didn't know anybody that was gay. I didn't really know what that meant. And there were, a few very, very flamboyant gay characters on the television in those days, and I didn't really associate myself with them. So it was quite difficult. It was only probably in my early 20s that I started to accept the fact I was different. I guess from being a young kid right through my teenage years to my early 20s, I constantly looked and watched every situation that I was in to make sure that I didn't stand out. And I think that's true for a lot of LGBTQ plus folks in the community, that we have tended to try to fit in for much of our lives, and then had to go through a long period of trying to accept who we are. And many of us don't accept and choose not to be ourselves. But I think what that does quite uniquely is I think it helps you develop a heightened intuition, a heightened sense of human connection, because you've spent most of your life watching others to make sure that you fit in and to make sure you don't stand out too much from the crowd. So I would say most LGBTQ colleagues that I know are very high on emotional intelligence and are very aware of what's going on in a room, very aware if someone isn't quite themselves or someone's not quite engaged. So it's almost like I used to call it like a gay superpower. It's probably LGBTQ plus superpowers that we have, like this emotional intelligence. Anyway, so as I was saying, it took me a long time to accept that I was gay. I lived with a fantastic woman called Caroline for 3.5 years, and I remember she had decided she wanted to go back to university to finish her studies. And we had a conversation about her going to university, and she also wanted to see what it was like to date other guys. And I told her that I quite fancy the idea of dating other guys as well, which was a bit of a shock to the system. But we both decided that we would go and explore different parts of our lives. And I really looked forward to her leaving, if I'm honest, to go to university so that I could suddenly explore whether or not I was gay. And I packed her off to university, drove my car up to Birmingham, in fact, in the centre of the UK. And she was staying in a university residence on something like the 20th floor of this horrible tower block, and I took all of her stuff up. It was exhausting. And then the next day she phoned me in tears to say she hated it and she wanted to come home. And of course I was looking forward to exploring my new gay life and whether or not I was gay, but I went and collected her and brought her back home, and we started again. And it was probably about 6 months later that I found out she was having an affair with the estate agent that we bought our house from, where I decided that this was it. And now I really need to live my life. And I went to my first ever gay club near where I lived in Southampton, which is a city on the south of England. And in those days, gay clubs in the UK were dark buildings, and you go up to the door, you knock on the door, there was a little window in the door, they opened the window to see who you were and to see whether or not they'd let you in, and then they would pull you in just in case you were stabbed from the locals. It was a very violent time to be an out person. And I remember going to that club, and I sat down in that club and everybody looked at me because it was like I was the fresh meat, if you like, on the gay scene in Southampton. And a gentleman sat next to me, put his hand on my knee, and in that moment I knew without a shadow of a doubt that I was gay. And I had no more questions ever about it. And I began, that's when I began my life, if you like, my professional career as a gay man. But I'd never wanted to be, Andy, the gay guy, who's also a PwC partner. I always felt that, being gay was part of who I am, but it's not all that I am. And for many years, I didn't really make a big thing of it. And certainly at PwC, it was never really a big deal. And it only became something worth talking about when people made assumptions about my wife or my girlfriend or what I was doing at the weekend. And I always felt quite strongly that I would never tell people I was gay out of context. But if somebody assumed that I had a wife or a girlfriend, at that point I would correct them, because I didn't want to have to lie about my life and feel uncomfortable about my life in order to deal with trying not to make somebody else uncomfortable. So I felt that was unreasonable for me to have to edit my life in order to save somebody else's discomfort. So I was always really clear from back in, as you said, like 1998, when we both joined the firm, I was already really clear that at the point at which somebody made an assumption about my personal life, I wouldn't continue to lie about my personal life. I would correct them. And I remember my first husband, and I've been married twice. So I'm a big supporter of equal marriage. I just don't recommend it. It's very expensive. So I've been married twice. And I remember my first husband, I always used to introduce him at PwC events as, this is my wife that you talk about. And I introduced Elliot, my first husband, which was I always found most amusing to see the shock on people's faces. But yeah, so I never really had a big problem at PwC being out, because I didn't really make a big deal of it. I wanted to be Andy. Andy's a good guy. He happens to be a partner. By the way, he's gay, not the other way around. And it wasn't until 2012 when the UK firm was ranked in 100th position, with Ernst & Young being position number 1 on the Stonewall Equality Index, that I really felt that it was perhaps time for me to step up and to be a role model. I think for many of us, for many different reasons, we are role models, but we don't always acknowledge the fact that we're role models. Just the fact of who we are makes us role models. And then there's a choice about, do you want to do something with that position and platform that you have, or do you want to hide and do nothing with it? So I know lots of gay partners, I know lots of LGBTQ plus partners who never ever mention it, and they just go about their lives as partners within the firm, and that's fine, that's their choice. But I realized that actually I felt that as a partner in particular, I had a responsibility to step into my shoes as a role model and to do something with it. And it was, I would say it was probably at that point that things got more difficult for me. And, you know, there is a sense sometimes, I think, that people don't want to make other people uncomfortable. And sometimes mentioning that you're gay makes some people uncomfortable. So that's been difficult sometimes. I found it difficult to deal with the idea that that would be a problem for anybody who knows me. But you know, that is life, and I've felt quite strongly that it's important for me to be able to tell people that I'm gay whenever I feel like it. You know, I don't skip around the office with a flag, you know, in sequin hot pants, screaming that I'm gay every day. But I don't want to edit my life, and I don't want to hide my life in moments where it is relevant to say something about my personal life. So you know, I don't apologize for other people's discomfort about me saying that I'm gay in moments when the alternative for me would be to lie about myself and lie about my life. I try not to make a big deal of it in moments where it's not really relevant. I don't always get that right. But I've always felt strongly that in stepping into my shoes as a role model, because of who I am, it's important to let people know who I am. In particular, for young folks in the firm, I think it's important for people to know that it's okay to be gay, and there are gay partners, there are LGBTQ plus partners. It doesn't matter. If anything, it gives you superpowers of heightened emotional intelligence, I would say, and I think that's important to be that role model. I don't know. I think that's enough. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, thanks, Andy. I think, and as always, you know, thanks for being sort of so open and sharing a lot of your sort of personal life with us. I think often some of these things tend to sort of get hidden behind the backdrop of other identities, and I think we'll explore some of that as we go along in the conversation. But it's really been a sort of very inspirational personal story that you've shared with us. One thing, however, I'm eager to know, and as I'm sure friends and colleagues who've joined on this call eager to know, is how do you manage to do or pack so much into your life in spite of being a PwC partner? You know, writing books, giving TED Talks, volunteering, you know, all the sort of impact work that you do outside of PwC. I mean, how do you really find the motivation and the time to sort of pack all of that in, and how do you really sort of keep going?
It's a good question. I think some of my partner colleagues think that means I'm not doing my day job. So it's good to address this. I hope they're listening. I mean, in many ways, that is my motivation. You know, I think the first thing is that I don't have children. I've got 2 dogs, and I have a partner, Marcio, but I don't have any children. So I'm not taking my kids to school. I'm not taking them to activities. I'm not worrying about my children. And I know for many folks who have children or caring responsibilities, you know, that consumes a lot of personal time. So I don't have that. So I have available time in my personal time. I also, you know, I'm a very creative person. I need to be creating things and doing things, and I need like this book. You know, I need to hold things that I've created. You know that I launched a gin business a few years ago. Like, I love the idea of creating something that is physical, that you can feel it. And our jobs are amazing, but it's mostly talking. It's mostly bringing people together, and the effect of what we do is amazing, and it makes me immensely proud to be a PwC partner. But it's not. I can't touch it. I can't hold on to it. So I started my life as an engineer and a designer, and my first ever job was as a draftsman. I used to work for a design agency that worked with Jaguar cars. So I love to create and design. I can't always get that from PwC. So I tried to not put all that pressure to fulfill Andy on PwC, and I tried to do things outside of PwC that keep me stimulated, keep me motivated, keep me excited. That sometimes I want to do things at my speed, not PwC speed. Sometimes I want to do things without consulting risk management, and and having to go through all the governance processes, because it's just my thing. Of course, one has to consult with compliance and independence on many of those things anyway, just to make sure that you don't get yourself into a pickle. But those different things that I've found always motivate me. I think partly my dad passed away in 1997, and it made me. And then I was married in a relationship for 10 years, and that ended, and it wasn't my choice. And those kind of big moments in my life really made me think about my life, and made me think about the fact that I don't want to live my life in order to retire and then really live my life. I don't know. I have a pacemaker implanted because I have a heart condition. Like, I don't know when any of us are going to die. We could, and I really am not completely clear what happens after death. I actually think it's going to be an amazing and exciting new journey. And a lot of my friends think I'm very strange for being excited about death, but I do think whatever is next could be really exciting. But I'm really clear from those moments that I've had in my life that I want to live every moment of my life today, and because today could be the only moment I have left. So I was talking to a lot of people, and for about a year, people kept telling me, you should write a book. And I kept hearing it and hearing it and hearing it. I'm like, stop talking to me about this book. Like, leave me, like, stop. I mean, I don't read a lot of books. I'm not a strong reader. I read very slowly. I'm not, it's got to be a really, really, really good book. Very carefully written for me to be able to read it, because I can't concentrate. I'll be reading, and then I'll see a bird fly past or something, and then I have to read the page again, and then the dog will come in, and I'll talk to the dog about what he's been doing, and then I have to read the page again, and then before, like, I've read that page like 20 times, I'll put the book down. So I never felt that I had the right to write a book, but I always loved the idea of it, and because so many people told me to, I thought I should find a way to do it. So I mean, to be honest, I just tried to organize my time to be able to do these things. And I found a fantastic lady called Mindy, who's a book midwife. She helps you give birth to your book. And she ran, at the same time as people kept saying about writing a book, she was running a virtual book writing class during the first pandemic lockdown here. And I thought, what have I got to lose? So I joined the class. It was basically 2 hours. The commitment was 2 hours a day for 8 weeks. So I did 2 hours of writing before I started my work. So it was before my normal working day. And I wrote for 2 hours a day for 8 weeks, and I wrote the book, and it was done. So, it's the same with the gin. I didn't know if I could launch a gin business, so I Googled it. And I started talking about it on social media, and then everyone wanted to know where my gin was, and then I thought, I'm gonna have to learn how to make gin. And so I used to do that at the week, when I was doing that every single weekend for over a year, I was making gin. I didn't have any weekends. So I think, what I learned in life is if you want to do something, the only thing stopping you from doing it is your desire and intention to do it.
Yeah, brilliant. And Andy, what I'm going to do, and this is a segment of a paragraph in the early stages of the book, which I think immediately sort of resonated. I don't know how many partners we have on this call, but just let me share those few sentences. And to all the partners, this is a pretty unique and interesting take on partnership. And Andy, what you say is getting into partnership isn't really that easy. For me, it felt like being trapped in the plot of a never-ending Indiana Jones movie. It took me some time to recover from the adventure of the process to really appreciate the platform that being a partner provides. And I think the whole piece about being the role model, really sort of leveraging that opportunity, to explore different things. I think that those phrases really, in a sense, encapsulates what perhaps partnership has the danger of becoming, but really what the opportunity can also be. And I think that's brilliantly covered. So, and that will be a point, Andy, for trying to advertise your book on this call.
It's definitely, I think it's definitely anybody at PwC, and especially partners. PwC is such an amazing platform to change the world. I mean, you'll remember, we used to have a campaign when we merged Coopers and Lybrand and Pricewaterhouse, which was "Join us together, we can change the world."
Yeah.
And that remains what motivates me every single day, to change the world. And PwC is such an amazing platform for that. And the new equation really, I think, re-energizes that and brings that back to life. And that's not just for partners, but I think in particular, if you are a partner, I feel like you've got an obligation to change the world. That's the only reason I wake up in the morning.
Yeah. Let me turn to something perhaps a bit more personal and perhaps even from my side. And we've spoken about it briefly, Andy, in the past, which is about a very sort of close and dear family member of mine, who, having spent a number of years in Europe, returns to India, and in a sense comes out, but is simply unable to cope with the pressure of an extended family and community who are in a lot of ways fairly conservative. And this sort of pressure drives him to take his life, which really comes as a big shock to a lot of us. But just trying to relate that to the larger agenda, I mean, LGBTQ plus continues to be a hidden diversity in a sense. And while we have a number of colleagues and friends who've sort of, in a sense, come out, but we also have a number of them who haven't. Now, is there a message that you have for this group? And I mean, how can they be comfortable and confident with their identity, and in a sense, really discover that uniqueness within themselves and stand up for themselves?
Yeah, I remember when you first told me that story, and it's, makes me feel very emotional. Anyone taking their life, I think, is just, to get to that point, and that's something, I've got to that point a number of times in my life where I've thought, can I really deal with this anymore? And I think, lots of people have that. Lots of men have that, because men are not supposed to have emotions, and you're supposed to, don't cry, be a man. I think if you're part of the LGBTQ plus community, you have some of that, and it's extra as well on top. I don't know. I think, when you decide to come out, it's your choice. And one has to not put people under pressure to come out. I mean, we do end up having to come out almost every day. Every time somebody makes an assumption about who you are and who you're in a relationship with, you often have to, unless you want to lie about who you are and edit yourself, you have to come out again. So there's often a myth that as a LGBTQ plus person, you come out once, maybe in your 20s or even earlier, but you don't. You come out at least once a week. You have to, clarify, and then it's like, oh, do I have to? People often are busy to tell you about somebody they know who's gay or someone, it's like, that's okay. I'm fine with that. I don't need any more gay friends. So I think, people will come out and accept who they are when they're ready to do that. And just know that, everybody is loved. Everyone is special. Everyone is unique. We're all also a big hot mess. Like, I don't know. I've never met any person anywhere, especially at PwC, that isn't on some level a hot mess. So everybody's got challenges, and everyone's got big issues that we could never know what they're really dealing with every day. And I think the thing I've always found wonderful about PwC people is that people are generally kind and caring, and there's no intention to upset anyone or to exclude anyone. Sometimes it happens by mistake, but people are generally good people in PwC, I think, generally accepting and inclusive. And I think, when you're ready to come out, if you feel you want to, then you will. It's nobody's business who you are, and it's none of your business what other people think about you. So I think you just have to, at some point, I think we all get comfortable with who we are. I mean, I often think, and very much that's why I wrote the book as almost a guidebook to have us all accept our own uniqueness, and then to try to build from that place going forward, regardless of what makes you different, or even if you don't think you're different. We are all, every single human being is unique. But I think, I was going to say, I think personally, I think I will be my fully formed self. The best version of Andy Woodfield will be probably the day before I die, and then I'll be ready for whatever the next adventure is. And that's how I see it. That I learn so much every day, from other people, from myself, from my dogs even. Like, I learn stuff about life and myself. And I do think I will be a fully formed human being the day before I die, and we're all on that journey, and that journey is our own individual journey. It's nobody else's business, unless you want to get on a call with 170 people and share your story.
Yeah. So, Andy, just to sort of come back to PwC and sort of diversity and inclusion agenda, any thoughts, and this is based largely on your experience, any thoughts on how you drive diversity and inclusion within PwC UK, and of course across global networks? What was that experience like, and what sort of guidance or steer would you give to us in India? And as I said, it's still early days for us, but what sort of steer would you have for us as we sort of seek to advance on this particular initiative, and anything specific in terms of pitfalls that we should be looking out for?
Yeah, I think so. One of the things I've really learned is that diversity and inclusion are so completely separate in terms of topic and concept that in many ways a lot of organizations risk looking diverse, but actually in order to be successful, so if you look at the UK, in order to be successful in the UK, potentially you have to behave like a straight white man, but you can look as different as you want. You can be any color you want, any sexuality you want, but so long as you behave like a straight white man, or as long as you behave like the predominant culture of your organization, then you can be successful. And that's what I think diversity brings you. So inclusion is different. Inclusion is so different from diversity. Inclusion is really about listening and hearing and unlocking the potential of different voices and different ways of working and ways of being. And of course, you need a lot of diversity in order to get to inclusion, but different people don't necessarily care about other people's voices. They care about their own voice. So it's a real challenge for us, I think, to really understand about inclusion and the power of inclusion. We talk about diversity and how that's a business enabler and how important that is for us as a firm. But the danger is all we do is become diverse looking. But neurodiversity, difference of thought, difference of approach, different ways of thinking. I think, you know, many PwC people are very structured and focused and like data and process. But equally, there's lots of people that are much more creative in their way of thinking, and often the creative types and the process types don't work well together. You know, so I think we have to embrace different ways of being and doing things in order to understand and take the value from diversity. So I think the main thing is to accept that we are not that advanced. You know, I was having conversations this week with partner colleagues, and we keep trying to convince ourselves that we're much better. We've got a lot to do, but we're a lot better than other organizations. And I don't think that's a helpful dialogue. Like, let's just accept that we've got a lot of work to do. I think we are on step 4 of a 4,000 step process. And it's irrelevant that many of our competitors and our clients are maybe on step 1. It doesn't matter. We're on step 4 of a 4,000 step process. So we don't need any more data, but we do have to keep learning. And as you know, as I said, you know, I keep learning my entire life until I'm dead. We have to accept that we will not get this right all the time, and we have to keep listening to people that are different from us to understand and believe in their lived experiences. So the biggest advice I always have, and the biggest thing I love the most, is reverse mentoring. You know, instead of teaching people that are different how to fit into PwC, we need to find the people that are different and help them to teach us how to make PwC work for them, because otherwise PwC will become irrelevant. So we have a big challenge with Black colleagues in the UK. You know, we need Black colleagues to mentor us, to teach us how we need to change and transform PwC to accommodate them and their creativity and uniqueness. I think too often we are coaching and mentoring people that appear to be different, like women's leadership programs, you know, ethnic diversity leadership programs. We're teaching them how to fit in. We need them to teach us how to change the system, and that's the main thing I would say.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a simple but such a powerful sort of approach, isn't it? And I think often we tend to approach a lot of these initiatives with sort of straight-jacketed, preconceived, one-size-fits-all approach and expect everybody just to conform to that. Yeah. So I think we'll probably sort of start taking questions which have started coming in from the audience. But before we get to that, Andy, you sort of the process of discovering a bit more about yourself. Here are a set of rapid fire fun questions for you to kind of quickly respond to without thinking too much. So if you're ready, here's your starter for 10, as it were.
Go on.
How would you describe yourself in 3 words?
Trouble. Or troublemaker. A troublemaker in training, maybe.
Fantastic. Here's question 2. So when you were a child, what did you want to be when you grew up?
I wanted to be an architect. I loved buildings and design. My careers I say this in a book. My careers counselor said I would never be an architect because my maths wasn't good enough to be an architect. So I told her that I would be a careers counselor then, because you clearly don't need any skills for that.
Yeah, I wish there was a way of sort of capturing her.
She wasn't happy.
I bet she wasn't. Yeah. What's your sort of favorite inspirational quote?
Breathe.
Do you know where that comes from, or
No, I don't know. I don't know. I just always felt, in those like, I often, in the days when we had PwC partner offices in the good old days, before the revolution of our people, people used to bring random people into my office and say, Andy, like, this is somebody new. Give them some what's your words of wisdom for them? Like, my biggest piece of advice is just breathe. I mean, learning to breathe and just like taking a moment, it's the most powerful thing ever.
Yeah, fantastic. Your favorite fitness regime, Andy?
That's hilarious. I think the best thing I would do is I'm lucky enough to have an apartment here, which is halfway between our Embankment Place office and our More London office here in London. And it's about 20 minutes walk to Embankment Place that way. And it's about 15 minutes walk to More London that way. And I think my best fitness, and I noticed this because in lockdown, I got very fat, is my walk to work. A strong, confident walk to work is fantastic. And it also is great fitness for my head. It helps me to think about what I'm going to do. So yeah, I think a good walk. I used to go to the gym, and I should go back to the gym, apparently, according to my partner. I hate the gym, and I always have a personal trainer who I always said to my personal trainer, my job is to turn up. Everything else is your responsibility. But the trouble is, as a consultant, I will always at the gym try to find the easiest way to do everything.
Fantastic. Favorite movie or TV show? I think the TV show might be a little tricky for folks who are sort of not very familiar. So you might want to talk about a favorite movie.
Oh, I don't know, but I have a favorite. I love lots of.
What about a genre? Maybe a sort of a film genre, westerns or spaghetti westerns.
I like a good crime or thriller or something. I like James Bond or Mission Impossible. I love that kind of action, of suspense. That kind of thing. At the moment we end up watching lots of American crime, like FBI things. There's a great one with Queen Latifah, which is now on Netflix, which I love. And of course, I love RuPaul's Drag Race. I think that's brilliant. Yeah, so I love all that kind of stuff.
Okay, brilliant. Your favorite hobby?
Sleeping.
So let's get this right. So there's breathing, there's sleeping. Not really too keen on the gym. Are we beginning to sort of detect a pattern here?
Well, this is the life of a PwC person. Like when I get time, I sleep. I love a nap. Yeah, I mean the dogs. I think a good conversation with the dog is also hugely beneficial. I call the oldest dog is my chief mental health advisor. I think dogs and animals have a lot to teach us human beings.
Yeah. So here's the final one before we get to some of the questions that have begun to sort of flow in. What's the one piece of advice that you'd like to give an 18-year-old Andy?
That's a good question. I think I remember you were asking me about this the other day. I think it would be to remember that you were better looking than you thought you were. And you should make the most of it. You should be more confident that you are better looking than you thought you were, because it won't last for very long, because you will get older. So enjoy it while it lasts.
Yeah, and in my case, you lose all your hair.
Exactly. I'm sure mine's coming out. But yeah, enjoy the moment.
Yeah.
I think in general, I spent a lot of my younger years, rushing to, be a partner, to get married, to find somebody to share my life with, to save money for a new car or to buy a house, or it's like, oh, that's why I say breathing is really good. Just like everything you have is exactly what you need right now.
Yeah.
Like relax.
Yeah. Fantastic. We've got a bit of time, I think about 15 minutes. So we've got a few questions coming in from the audience. So let's get cracking with that. So here's the first one. You said that you didn't want to be Andy the gay guy. You also said that we always avoid standing out and we always try to fit in. How would one go about it without causing any issues?
I would say don't worry about causing issues. Like what other people think about you is none of your business. When you're ready to, the line for me, as I said earlier, the line for me was always, I'm not going to lie about myself. So I don't need to tell everyone that I'm gay, but when somebody makes an assumption, when a client, I always remember working with Vodafone, and I worked with the chief technology officer, amazing guy, him and his wife became very good friends of mine. Really, really lovely guy. But I remember he used to smoke, and we went outside, and I don't smoke. And he was saying, so, what's your wife like? And I was thinking, oh God, like, am I now going to make up a story and lie to this guy about this fake wife? Or am I going to say, actually, I don't have a wife, but I have got a husband? And it was uncomfortable, and it was a decision and a choice. And this is, I think, why people sometimes forget that LGBTQ plus folks have some additional stress, because there's constantly a question about, shall I lie about myself and feel shame from lying, or shall I deal with this discomfort and the potential awkward situation that I'm now going to create by saying who I really am? And where do you, and I always found the line was absolutely clear to me that I would not lie about who I am. And if that made somebody else uncomfortable, that was not my problem.
Yeah. Second question is around sort of never coming out. What are the perils of never coming out? And what do you think that never coming out can actually do to a person?
Well, it will kill you. Very clearly, it will kill you. I mean, you imagine living your entire life as a lie. It's not who you are. You can't, so many people, I mean, even people that are not LGBTQ plus, many people come to work every day and they are acting in a way they think they need to act in order to appear to be successful and appear to be good at their jobs. And you suppress all of your emotional intelligence that you could be using for your job to tackle the task that you've been set as part of your job at PwC, because all your emotional intelligence is on you constantly editing yourself to act in the way you think you should act, as if you were an actor on television or in a movie. Now, if you want to be an actor on a television or a movie, then go be an actor. But you're not. You're a PwC person. So you severely diminished your professional capability if you're using your emotional intelligence to edit yourself and perform in the way you think you will. But also, you will kill yourself from that internalized shame of not being able to accept who you are. It's so detrimental to one's mental health. And the reality is, you're a beautiful, unique person, and you are loved, and you will be loved. And the first person who needs to know that they're loved is you. Need to know that you need to love yourself. As was says, if you can't love yourself, how the hell do you think you can love somebody else? So learning self-love and getting to that point, and again, I would say I will be there the day before I die. I'm not finished by any stretch. So this is a constant evolution of working towards being a more fully formed and accepting person, of accepting myself and others.
Yeah. Andy, we spoke briefly about role models. So the third question is essentially around that. So does having celebrities who are out help the community more, as it might make society more aware and accepting, or is it the absolute opposite of that?
For me, I would say absolutely yes, it helps. I remember we have a soap opera here called EastEnders, which has been running for years and years and years. And there was a gay character on that soap opera when I was a kid. And when I finally told my mum after my dad had died that I was gay, and my mum was living in Scotland, so I had a 6-hour drive to go and see her, specifically to tell her I was gay. It was such an anticlimax. I was quite disappointed, actually. I wanted more drama and tears and something. But she said, well, it's who you are, isn't it? It's in your genes, because she learned that from EastEnders. She learned it from Colin, who was the gay character on EastEnders. So it's incredibly important to have gay characters in movies and TV and role models out there in public, be they from sporting life, celebrities, whatever celebrity is, and in the professional world as well. The most, I think right now, the most inspiring celebrity role model is this black guy called Little Nas, who's just amazing. He's like a young black singer songwriter who is just pushing boundaries, and I find him immensely inspiring. And to listen to, he has an amazing song called Industry Baby, and his album was launched last night. To listen to Industry Baby on my headphones walking to work yesterday, I felt like I could do anything and be anybody. It was amazing. So I would say yes, absolutely.
Fabulous. We probably take one last question from the audience. So this is the sort of question being shared. Very courageous of you, Andy, to share the kind of personal stuff that you have with us. I've always wanted to ask this. I do not treat a gay person any different, but do they want to be sort of differently treated? And when I say differently, I mean that probably with more care, respect, like more than how we would just treat a straight person. So it's really trying to understand the perspective of a gay person in terms of how he or she would like to be treated.
Well, we would definitely like to be paid more. We'd like more leadership opportunities. We should be promoted to more board roles. We should be revered for our fabulousness and our unique skills and emotional intelligence. So all of those things, I would say, were true. I think mostly, we're all different. The important thing is to appreciate that, every human being is different. We used to say difference is the one thing we all have in common. So I think, being gay isn't a phase, it's not a condition, it's not a choice, it's just part of who we are. So, ignorance is an evil thing. And I think just, ask the questions. If you're curious about something, be curious. If you've got good intention and you want to understand, just ask and engage with that person. But yeah, mostly we want to be paid more and we want to be in more board roles.
When you started responding to that question, I thought you were sort of speaking generally about PwC colleagues, more opportunity, higher pay, more board positions.
For everybody, yeah.
Yeah.
No, just for the LGBTQ plus people.
Yeah. So there is a question which is more around PwC India, so I'll probably sort of take that. The question reads, do we as an organization do something to create a safe and supportive environment for the LGBTQ plus group? So just in response to that, I mean, we are focusing to bring a lot more awareness on creating an inclusive workspace, a workplace for LGBTQ plus, to better understand the community, including sort of, having sessions like today, and other sessions that we organized within the Let's Talk LGBTQ plus. We have senior leadership, senior partners, who are going to take up responsibility of being executive sponsors for this. We have the same-sex partner benefits included in the medical insurance policy. I mean, just from a sort of more operational perspective, as an example. And we have a fairly active Shine LGBTQ plus ally group. I mean, as I said, it's about 88 plus strong, but highly energetic individuals, and I think that group is growing. But what we'd also like is enthusiastic employees and energetic employees volunteering. So you can actually sort of reach out to be part of this group, to actively contribute and participate in bringing this change. So to all my friends out there, so do reach out to Anupama Vesh, sort of the coordinator, and you can find out a bit more about how you can contribute. So Andy, I'm just conscious of time. So maybe just one last question before I sort of sum up. And this is for you. To be yourself is often considered being the troublemaker. I mean, you did mention the word troublemaker on perhaps more than an occasion. I think when we are able to sort of accept disruption in our stereotypes is when we will be more inclusive. So moving ahead so much in life while being yourself, what do you think is still the most challenging? What kind of, in a sense, resilience do you think is still required in people who see themselves to be different?
It's something I would call conformity anxiety, because there's constantly an inner dialogue about wanting to be part of something. As human beings, we are kind of community animals. We do want to be part of something. As a partner, I want to feel part of the partnership. As a PwC person before I was a partner, I wanted to feel like this place was for me. These are my people, this is my community. And I think it's very natural to want to feel part of something. And sometimes when you are being yourself, you don't feel part of something, and you can feel excluded, and you can exclude yourself. And sometimes you're asking yourself, if I challenge this, if I stand up to what I've experienced, if I speak up, I exclude myself. So there's a constant challenge about, should I speak up? Should I stand up, or should I be quiet? The challenge I think we have, and the responsibility we have as partners in particular, is to speak up and to deal with the discomfort of that, and to deal with the challenge that one gets of feeling that you're not part of this thing. Because actually what I've found is that whenever I've done that, people do listen, things do change. It doesn't always happen in the way you want it to, but people do want to learn, they do want to develop, and the firm does evolve. It's very uncomfortable in the moment to speak up. And I think mostly it doesn't feel like anybody really wants anybody to speak up. And it would be a lot easier if nobody spoke up. But somebody has to. Someone's got to do it. Someone's got to say, actually, do you know what, that is not okay because of this. And that's what, that's my silly way of saying I'm a troublemaker, that I've always felt someone has to speak. It's not my opinion. It's not Andy being a troublemaker. There's something going on which is being unspoken, and someone needs to speak it with good intention, that we all move together in a more positive way, not to try to separate. But I think that's the challenge of, how do you stay part of something and be included and speak up when you see problems without excluding yourself? And that causes big trouble in your head. And that's really difficult. And then typically what happens is that PwC wants to help you with your head. So you become the victim of that, and then you get support from a counselor or a mental health advocate because you're the problem, and you're not the problem. PwC is the problem. PwC is the thing that needs to change. So I think we've got a lot to learn about mental health. It's not just about supporting individuals because they've got an issue or they feel under pressure. It's about what's going on within PwC that made them feel like that. And let's give PwC some mental health support, not always put the pressure on the individual.
Yeah. And again, I mean, easier said than done. I mean, but it's such a powerful way of looking at the issue. Andy, look, we're sort of top of the hour, but before we let you go, any sort of last thoughts or any advice to all our colleagues who are sort of listening in?
Well, thank you for listening. Thank you for bothering to listen. Think about the people that weren't listening, and maybe try and reach out to them. I think we often talk to people that are progressive, but it's the other people that probably need to hear stories like this. We need to be inclusive of everybody, even the people that don't agree. So I would just remember that we're all unique. We've all got a lot of problems, but 99.9% of all PwC people I've ever known have got amazingly good intentions. And if you ever need a chat, or you want to talk about any of the issues that we've covered, please feel free to reach out to me on social media or on Messenger or whatever you want. I'm very available and I'm very happy to chat to anyone. And just thanks a lot.
Listen, Andy, I mean, always a pleasure talking to you. Thank you for joining us and taking out an hour of your time, to sort of share your life experience with us. It's been such an incredibly refreshing conversation. And I'm sure all our colleagues listening to this conversation they're all taking a lot away from it, as I am. And we've learned a lot over the past hour. I mean, whether it's around the importance of emotional intelligence, looking at balancing different identities. I didn't know what a book midwife was, Andy. It's a brilliant concept. But also looking at the difference between diversity and inclusion, looking at the importance of reverse mentoring. I think it's such a powerful concept, and above all, loving oneself.
Yes.
I think really sort of, again, a very simple motif for all of us, but so powerful. So friends, we all have a very, very important role to play in creating this sort of space which is safe, secure for all our LGBTQ plus colleagues, where they don't feel the need to have to hide their identity, and where they can be themselves without worrying about being judged or stereotyped. And I think it can be done through very simple steps. I think treating every individual with respect, with fairness, and by valuing their contribution. Andy, it's been wonderful talking to you. Friends and colleagues out there, thank you for joining us. Have a good weekend. Bye-bye.
Thank you.